RTV6 encourages you to exercise your right to vote on November 6th. Live, what's happening right now from RTV6, the Indy channel.
And after months of campaigning, it's finally here, the latest on Election Day 2012 across the nation. Good afternoon, I'm Chris Proffitt. Today, millions of us will vote in both local and national elections, and we begin our special Democracy 2012 coverage right away this afternoon with the delays at the polls across the state. And one big trouble spot was in Hamilton County, as we've been reporting, where thousands of voters were delayed this morning after a computer glitch. Our TV6 reporter Stacia Matthews begins our coverage live from Carmel with the latest details. Stacia?
RTV6.
Well, it's hard to see one of these without a glitch. Okay, Stacia, thank you. And there have also been some issues at the State Fair voting location. There are two separate buildings for voting on the grounds, and there's been some confusion over where to cast ballots. Both the Southwest Pavilion and the Farm Bureau building are open for voting today. Now, if you experience any problems voting today, any of those poll problems, you can call the Marion County Clerk's office to report any issues. 30 hotline operators are standing by for calls at 327-VOTE or 327-8683. And remember also, when voting in Indiana, you have to show a photo ID. It can be an Indiana driver's license, an Indiana photo ID card, military ID, or even a U.S. passport. The BMV is open extra hours today from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. if you need a driver's license or a state ID card. Student IDs also allowed from Indiana schools. That's if they include your photo and your name, and it has to be current or have expired after the 2010 election. And we turn now to the race for the White House, and Mitt Romney continues to campaign today until the bitter end, and he's confident that voters will elect him as the next president. We're joined now by Emily Schmidt, who's in Boston with the latest on the Republicans' last big push.
Tonight.
Okay, Raphael, we want to go to Kirk McDonald, who's a homeowner. We have him by phone right now in the Richmond Hill subdivision where that explosion occurred 41 days ago today. He was home at the time of the explosion. Mr. Leonard, thank you for joining us. Let me ask you, first of all, your reaction to these charges of murder and arson today.
Well, actually, at first I've heard that actually they were being charged for murder, but definitely brings a little closure to it.
What's your, were you surprised at hearing this? We've heard from some neighbors who said that they were not surprised at the time that this explosion was suspicious, and then finally that it may have been a criminal act, that it was a criminal act. Were you part of that group that believed it was at first? We have breaking news if you are just joining us now. We're at 10:37. We've been on the air for quite some time. We have breaking news today that Montserrat Shirley and Mark Leonard, charges have been filed against them today. They are the owners of that home in the Richmond Hill subdivision. In that explosion that happened 41 days ago, they have been charged today with murder and arson. They are in custody, we are told right now, and the motive, according to prosecutors, is insurance fraud. A number of communities have closed their city offices today, cutting down on the number of people that they want on the roads. And you're going to get the latest updated closings listed at the bottom of the screen, and there are a lot of them. I want to go back to RTV6 reporter Rafael Sanchez. He's been with us since very early this morning, and you're hired. Let me just tell you, you're hired. I know that yes, you have been out there, and you have been braving this bad weather. Well, at least we can see you now because we were blinded by the snow earlier as you were, and Raphael, thanks for that. We want to go off to this, of course. There are people who are really suffering today. It's the city's homeless population, and they are struggling in this weather, and our TV6 reporter Jack Reinhart went to one of their campsites to see how they're doing today. This is the Irish. It is so cold outside. We want to take you to a look outside. Speaking of that, right in our own backyard, where Ashley has been making...
she's improved.
Yes, she has. She has been making some snow sculptures. She's doing snowmen out there today. And you know what? She's just a big kid.
Her form has gotten better. I mean, look at the first one, the blob, compared to the actual snowman looking one.
Okay, we're going to check in with our weather experts in just a moment. In this weekend, the Grand Am Series makes its debut at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We are very happy joining us this morning to have driver David Donahue, and we want to let everybody know that the name sounds kind of familiar because in 1972 your dad Mark won the Indianapolis 500, and now here you are, part of the whole racing tradition, but you're carving out a little different area for yourself. You decided to go in a little different direction in terms of racing. What's the difference between the two?
Well, my father did all kinds of racing, not just the IndyCar racing. He did sports cars as well as a little bit of stock cars. And my career has been pretty much completely in sports cars.
Why?
It's just where the opportunities fell for me. The best opportunities fell for me. I had a little bit of open wheel experience and a little bit of NASCAR experience, but it seems like sports cars where my home is.
And Dave, if I'm going to go see that race, how is it different from a lot of the races that we see on television?
Well, for Indianapolis, we run what the Formula One cars ran as a race course, so we're actually going the wrong way on the oval,
right.
Which is a little weird for a bunch of our guys that have run the Indy 500.
Yeah, we see some pictures right
so
there.
Yeah, so we that's our Corvette prototype, Daytona prototype, testing here a couple weeks ago. But that's what you'll get. You'll get the prototype sports cars, which resemble cars, but not quite street cars, and then you'll see the GT cars, which look a lot more like racy road cars.
Yeah, what's the top speed? What are we talking about? On these
we're
cars?
over 180, 185
That's fast.
On the straightaway here.
Yeah. What do you like about it? What do you like about this type of road racing? A lot of people would say it's very different from just
It's
going
more
around.
like what do you don't like, I think.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot to like. Of course, there's a big adrenaline rush, and I like working with the team. We're just, as drivers, and you'll hear this from stock car guys and IndyCar guys and anyone who races on any team, the driver's really carrying a flag for a very large group of people, putting a big effort in behind you. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, and there's a lot of reward that comes with the success when you do well.
Well, it's the inaugural weekend because we haven't seen this race here, and now here we go. It's called the Super Weekend that takes place. And we had a very large trophy that was brought in here, and literally the desk started sinking once it was put on top of it. So that's the one that you're going after, right?
Right. You're not going to one-arm that thing on the podium, that's
No, I
for
don't
sure.
think so. You're not going to be holding that up. David, thank you for joining us this morning. We wish you the best of luck in the race. We've put all the information you need to know about the Super Weekend at the Brickyard on our website at theindychannel.com. Here's the question that doesn't have a great answer. Do you know how safe the food is at your favorite farmer's market? Despite the wholesome image, there's no guarantee, and there are more people than ever making and selling that food, and in some cases with very little oversight. It's Wednesday morning at the downtown Indianapolis Farmers Market, and it's already crowded. Customers buying fresh produce.
Is that one good? That does look nice, honey.
But within minutes, we spot something wrong. A man grabbing a pretzel sample barehanded instead of using the provided toothpicks. That's just part of a larger problem as the number of farmers markets explodes. Nationwide, that number has grown 64% in the last 5 years to more than 7,000. Robert Engelking sells beef grown on his Hancock County farm.
You got to rely on the Board of Health to do their job and hope the vendors also follow through. There are guidelines we follow, and hopefully they do it.
Those food safety rules come from the Indiana State Department of Health. They're the same rules governing regular retail establishments, but it's up to each of the 92 counties to decide how to enforce and carry out those rules. At this market in Lawrenceburg in Dearborn County, vendors say they haven't seen a health inspector in years.
Not when I'm here anyway.
They were cut yesterday.
In Johnson County, Health Inspector Chris Menzie says the county doesn't typically inspect markets like this one in Greenwood.
We have a limited number of full-time inspectors, and we just haven't had the manpower to oversee most of these markets at this point in time.
But other county health departments do inspect farmers markets. Last year in Hendricks County, there were a handful of reports, mostly minor violations. But in Marion County, of the 255 inspections that were done from May through June, there were 66 violations, and some of them were critical. Like employees not washing their hands and cold foods not held at proper temperatures. A new study from Purdue University finds problems that are extremely common. In 900 transactions, researchers saw only 2 attempts at hand washing. They concluded that the lack of compliance with hand washing may pose a relatively high risk of foodborne illnesses. The Purdue experts add that conditions at farmers markets also pose unique food safety risks, since products are sold outdoors where they're exposed to dirt, insects, and other potential contaminants. And there's more. Most vendors must be licensed to sell perishable foods. But at a farmer's market near Cincinnati, inspectors found this Indiana man storing unrefrigerated eggs in his pickup truck. And at a nearby market, not only did this employee not have a license, these cream-based pasta sauces were stored in a cooler without ice and not at the proper temperature. A county health inspector promptly shuts it down.
But she has no license. She's got no hand washing station. She's got no anything.
Even more worrisome to some Indiana health inspectors, a new state law this year allowing virtually anyone to raise poultry, slaughter, process, and then package the meat without a single inspection. Poultry that can then be resold at farms, roadside markets, and farmers markets.
There's a potential for salmonella contamination, and plus, all of a sudden these people are doing what is normally done in a state-inspected or federally inspected plant.
We saw many vendors following the rules, like using wax paper and utensils instead of bare hands, and properly labeling products and storing them correctly. Customers depend on vendors following the rules, especially when some farmers markets are inspected by health officials and others aren't. It's about keeping people healthy with the fresh food from the quaint markets that seem to be popping up everywhere. Indiana also allows people to make at home certain foods that have very little risk of spoiling. They can then be sold at farmers markets, but it's that new law passed this year by the state legislature allowing poultry to be sold without inspection that has health officials very concerned. So there are two things you should look for. One is proper labeling on the products that you buy, and if you do buy poultry, look for a label that discloses if it's been inspected. We have more on what you should look for at the market on theindychannel.com, and look for this story on the homepage. Chris Proffitt, RTV 6.